they can stop me now. Daddy, cause I'm on my way. I can feel my ring coming. It's the blood of a champion, pumping deep inside my veins. Too much pride to be running. I'ma get what I can and more.
Bones of the hip joint and pelvic girdle include the pelvic bones, which are the ilium, ischium, and pubis, the sacrum, the coccyx, and the femur. Ligaments of the hip joint and pelvic girdle include the iliofemoral ligament, the ischiofemoral ligament, and the pubofemoral ligament. The primary motion of the anterior muscles of the hip joint and pelvic girdle is hip flexion. The anterior muscles of the hip joint and pelvic girdle include iliopsoas, pectineus, sartorius, rectus femoris, vastus medialis, vastus lateralis, and vastus intermedius. The iliopsoas muscles include the iliacus, the psoas major, and psoas minor. The primary motion of the posterior muscles of the hip joint and pelvic girdle is hip extension. The posterior muscles of the hip joint and pelvic girdle include the gluteus maximus, bicep femoris, semitendinosus, semimembranosus, deep six external rotators. Lateral muscles of the hip joint and pelvic girdle include the gluteus medius, gluteus minimus, and tensor fasciae latae. Medial muscles of the hip joint and pelvic girdle include the adductor brevis, adductor longus, adductor magnus, gracilis, and pectineus.
Bones of the knee. The bones of the knee include the femur, patella, fibula, and tibia. Ligaments of the knee. The ligaments of the knee include the anterior cruciate ligament, which prevents anterior translation of the tibia, the posterior cruciate ligament, which prevents posterior translation of the tibia, the medial collateral ligament, which prevents valgus stress, and the lateral collateral ligament, which prevents varus stress. Anterior muscles of the knee. The anterior muscles of the knee include the rectus femoris, vastus medialis, vastus intermedius, and vastus lateralis, which all combine to make the quadriceps group. Posterior muscles of the knee. The posterior muscles of the knee include biceps femoris, semimembranosus, semitendinosus, which together make the hamstrings group, the gracilis, the popliteus, and the gastrocnemius.
Bones of the ankle and the foot. The bones of the ankle and the foot include the tibia, fibula, talus, calcaneus, navicular, cuboid, first, second, and third cuneiforms, the first through fifth metatarsals, and the phalanges. Ligaments of the ankle and the foot. While there are many ligaments in the ankle and in the foot, here are some of the major ones. The anterior tibiofibular ligament, the posterior tibiofibular ligament, calcaneofibular ligament, deltoid ligaments, the posterior talocalcaneal ligament, and the Achilles tendon. Anterior and lateral muscles of the ankle and foot. The anterior muscles of the ankle and foot include the extensor digitorum longus, extensor hallucis longus, tibialis anterior. The lateral muscles of the ankle and the foot include the peroneus longus and the peroneus brevis. Posterior muscles of the ankle and foot. The posterior muscles of the ankle and foot include the gastrocnemius, soleus, tibialis posterior, flexor digitorum longus, and flexor hallucis longus.
Ain't no way they can, no. 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 Ain't no way they can stop me now. Daddy, cause I'm on my way. I can feel my ring.
During the loading phase at the hip joint, the hip is anteriorly rotated. The muscles involved are the iliopsoas, the rectus femoris, and the sartorius. During the loading phase at the knee joint, the knee is in slight flexion and the ACL is preventing the tibia from anterior translation. The muscles involved are the gastrocnemius and the soleus. During the loading phase at the ankle joint, the right ankle is in plantar flexion. The muscles involved are the gastrocnemius, the soleus, tibialis posterior, flexor digitorum longus, flexor hallucis longus, and the peroneals.
During the swing phase at the hip, The pelvis starts in an anteriorly rotated position, moves into a neutral position, and finishes in a posterior rotated position. The muscles involved begin with the quadriceps group in the anterior rotation, and then finish with the posterior muscles of the hip working, which are the hamstrings group. During the swing phase at the knee begins in a flexed position and moves into an extended position. The muscles involved include the quadriceps. During the swing phase at the ankle, the foot remains in a plantar flexed position, and the muscles involved include the posterior and lateral muscles of the foot and ankle.
During the post-swing phase at the hip joint, the hip is internally rotated and diagonally adducted. The muscles involved are the pectineus, adductor longus, brevis, magnus, and gracilis. During the post-swing phase at the knee joint, the knee is in extension and is internally rotated. The muscles involved are the rectus femoris, vastus intermedius, vastus lateralis, and vastus medialis. During the post-swing phase at the ankle joint, the ankle is in plantar flexion, and the muscles involved are the gastrocnemius, soleus, tibialis posterior, flexor digitorum longus, flexor hallucis longus, and the peroneals.